Does hell still have a grip on you? Do you still wonder if, man, what if they might be right, and man, I go to hell, you know? And family, that's a very real deal. Good morning, family. So this is Reginald Martin of Kemetic Sacred Alchemy, and where ancient wisdom becomes modern awakening. And today I want to address this idea of hell for you and help, hopefully help you through it, because it's a really a very powerful grip that it has on us emotionally, and a lot of times it even goes beyond our logical mind, in which Christianity did that a lot of times. But I remember this story, and family, this is true, that a person emailed me one time, and they said that that they were wanting to basically get over this their punishment, that they thought that might be coming because they were going to go to hell. And family, this person said that they literally set themselves on fire, okay? And the reason why they was doing it is that they were trying to bypass the punishment of hell, the eternal punishment, get it done and get it over with now so that they'll be okay, That's the real fear that people have. I mean, that is absolutely extreme, but that is something that people deal with. And this person literally said that they're now living the rest of their lives with, third degree burns over like 60% of their body, and but they use gasoline. They just douse themselves with gasoline and set themselves on fire, and that's the irrational fear that this idea of that Christianity has given us, what it can do, And family, it is not our fault in this sense, because we were given these ideas by people who we trusted, and they didn't know any better either. So I'm not maligning them, my parents, my grandmother, my mother. So these are all the people that we loved and trusted, a lot of times, aunts, uncles, whoever that were believers. So they didn't know any better either. But what Christianity did was they took ideas that were ancient, okay? So the ideas that existed well before Christianity, and they changed them, okay? So everything that was supposedly revelatory and new that Christianity said that they were bringing forth was really a bunch of lies, okay? Because what they did was they actually changed ancient philosophical ideas, and they created the religion from the dogma that they created, okay? So, and one of the things I want to do on this channel is to help you to reclaim these old ideas and give you the foundation of where these ideas came from and what they meant. So the psychological problems that this idea of hell causes is very real, but it is like being in an abusive relationship. You know that when you are, or you come out of an abusive relationship, the mental scars are just as long-lasting as the physical scars. If it was a physically abusive relationship, it doesn't just go away, and everything that you dealt with doesn't just go away. Christianity is the same. The relationship that we have with most of us, and many of us have had with this idea of the Christian God, is an abusive and traumatic one. Abusive and traumatic relationship. There's no other ways to put it, but it is so normalized because so many people believe it that we don't really look at it in that way. But it is trauma and abuse that many of us dealt with, okay, from Christianity. So when we're talking about the idea of hell, let me give you back what the ancient teachings about this idea was, okay? And they didn't have an idea of hell. So let me first say that. There was nothing that the ancients taught about a place of eternal damnation. Not one thing, no ancient system before Christianity taught anything like that, okay? So I want to make that clear. So first of all, the idea of fire. So let's address this from an ancient philosophical perspective. Is that the idea of fire, first of all, was the ancient idea of what the intellect of the creator was, okay? In other words, the fire or desire to be, the fire or desire to create, okay? That's what the fire was, okay? That was one aspect of how they metaphorically represented the idea of the intellect of the creator, the intelligence that is a part of all of the universe, okay? And fire was that thing. So the idea of a lake of fire, family, was born from the concept that everything came from one source, this one all-encompassing fire or intellect, and everything was born from it, okay? So the lake of fire was the idea that all souls, all things in the universe were born from a lake of fire, a lake of knowledge, intellect, and desire, okay? Not a place of eternal damnation, okay? And family, you can check these. I'm giving you information that I want you to have the ability to go and check for yourself. So that was the original meaning of the fire, okay? The lake of fire. The lake is where a pool of souls are born, okay? A pool of the universe, everything is born. The fire and desire to exist, all right? So that's the first part of that. That's where that came from. And this is, so family, this is reclaiming the ancient ideas, okay? Reclaiming and giving you the ability to help you reframe these fears that Christianity has basically, imbued us with these ideas, these ideas of burning in hell and stuff like that. Now, next, let me give you an ancient process that can help you with these ideas that Christianity taught us, because again, the new ideas that they gave us, okay, ideas like the fall, like resurrection, the Christ, these were ideas that existed long before Christianity, okay? And they are in many different spiritual systems. They're just called different names. But Christianity changed them and flipped them to something negative, okay? The fall they made negative. The fall was originally just a fire that descended into matter, okay? That's what it originally meant, okay? All of these had to do with all of these ideas were about the journey of the soul, okay? The soul was the primary figure in these ideas, not the physical existence, okay? The physical existence is like a playground or a training ground for souls, okay? But you've probably heard the idea of as above, so below, okay? As within, so without, okay? And that is a very, very deep and very encompassing, all-encompassing philosophical concept that we kind of look at, in a way we're like, oh, as above, so below. Oh, that's cool. But as above, so below was a concept that connected us to everything in nature, okay? Not only in nature, in physical nature, but also the metaphysical nature, the metaphysical world, what we might call spirit, okay? The non-physical world, all right? So above was the metaphysical world. Okay, it was the macro world, the metaphysical aspect, the spirit world is the macro, and below is the earth plane. Okay, the plane that we live here, the idea that we live here on earth, that's the microcosm. So we got the macrocosm of the above, the microcosm of the below. Okay, the way the ancients taught this idea was to help you to understand that you're connected, that where you come from is from the macro world, the spirit world, and you are basically a symbol, in a sense, of something that is in the physical or in the metaphysical world. Okay, in other words, there's an aspect of you that exists in the metaphysical world, and you are projecting as a symbolic form of that non-physical thing. Okay. Hey, one more thing on the as above, so below. Another way to understand this is that in order for the microcosm to exist, the environment in the microcosm has to come first. In other words, say for instance, like I have an image here of this creek area that I go and walk in, and you see all these trees and flowers and stuff that are in this creek. Well, that the environment to support those trees and all the growth that's in it had to exist in the macrocosm before they could even grow and become in this creek area. Okay, so the same thing goes for hell. If the macro does not exist to support such a thing, it cannot exist in the world, and it cannot exist in the macrocosm either. So again, that's just another way to think of as above, so below. The environment or the macro has to exist for the micro to come into being. Okay, so hell can exist in the way that Christianity has taught us. All right, so just another way to look at it, family. Well, family, that's not only the case for you, that's the case for anything. So, but you could also look at that even in the physical world. You could see as above, so below. So for instance, a cell in our body has organelles that can correspond to the organs of our physical body. So each cell is going to be a microcosm of the macrocosm. Okay, so organelles like, you know, lungs or a heart or something like that, there's going to be a representation of it inside a cell, just as it is in our body. So the cell would be the microcosm, and the body would be the macrocosm. Okay, but the way to look at that is that everything in nature has its representation on a macro level and a micro level. Okay, there is not going to be something that exists on one of these levels that does not exist in, say, the macro world. There's not going to be something that can exist. Going over my little steps here, so I have to go over my deal. But anyway, getting ready to go up there, go up a little hill. But at any rate, but it is also a philosophical process to understand that there's not something that can exist in the metaphysical world that does not exist in the physical world. So this idea of an eternal damnation or an eternal lake of fire, there's nothing like that exists on earth. Okay, well, okay, if you're in Texas in the summer, you might have second thoughts about it, but because it gets hot as hell here. But anyway, still trying to get over my bronchitis. But at any rate, there is no there's no corresponding evidence, or there's no corresponding thing like an eternal hell, okay? So as above, so below. So in the below, which is the physical earth, there's nothing like a hell. It doesn't exist. It cannot formulate, that thing cannot formulate if it does not already exist on some level in the macrocosm. The macrocosm is a symbolic projection, the microcosm is a symbolic projection of the macrocosm. It can be done in many different ways, okay? But there is nothing like that. No hell in the macrocosm, so there's no way in hell that it can exist on earth or anywhere else, okay? So that's one way to look at use the idea of as above, so below. I hope I'm making sense here, and let me know, in the comments if that's helpful. But the idea is that, again, it has to exist in both places in order for any type of physical reality to be created from it. And there's just nothing like that. There's nothing like that in a little maneuvering here. But there's nothing like that in the macrocosm, okay? There's no eternal hell. So again, these things that Christianity came up with that were new were the lies, okay? There's no other way to put it. They created a bunch of lies to basically keep us stuck in Christianity, to keep us from finding out about the lies that they told. They would demonize things like astrology and astronomy, when both those things had everything to do with the movement of the stars, the sky, and in the sky and stuff like that, but were also symbols for ideas that were being talked about, by mystics and poets and stuff like that. The ideas that they talked about, the light of the world and stuff like that, we worship them, but in reality, they were just explaining and expressing these philosophical ideas in different ways, doing it in memorable ways, using metaphors, similes, just play on words. That's the stuff that we are getting in the Bible and a lot of the other ancient texts. It's just their philosophical and poetic ruminations about these philosophical ideas and concepts, okay? So the idea is family, is that, so you're not broken, you're not a sinner, you're not any of these things that Christianity has given us, these new ideas that Christianity has given us. They took ancient philosophical concepts, and family, they twisted them to create the religion and to create the dogma that keeps us in fear, And understand that, family, they, we didn't have a chance because, one, we were taught by people who we trusted, and two, Christianity has had schools to teach these concepts and to basically combat, the objections that we might have about these concepts. Seminary schools, preachers are taught how to answer these questions that we might have. Well, it doesn't make sense that, over hell, why would, somebody burn for eternity? They're taught how to handle these questions, okay? So when you go to a preacher and they've been educated in that way, it's not that they're just coming up with some great idea. It's the stuff they've been taught. It's how they've been taught in schools to answer you and keep you stuck in the religious belief, okay? So in that sense, family, again, we don't have a chance unless we educate ourselves, And you have to go outside of that framework, and I hear, and see many people online, they're trying to stay within the Christian framework because they think that that's the reality of these ideas, but when you reclaim the ideas like the Christ, resurrection and stuff like that, you'll find that the truth is much more powerful than the lie. And trying to stay within the Christian frame is only going to continue the abuse and the trauma that you have dealt with. Okay, so you're going to have to be brave enough to break out of that frame and reframe it and look at it in a different way. And hopefully that's what I'm helping you do here on this channel. So there are so many videos that I do, family, that I go a lot deeper, especially in a lot of times my faceless videos. I go a lot deeper into these ideas and these concepts, and I show you where they came from, and how they impact you, and the ancient philosophy behind them, because your power is going to come from your knowledge first, and then when you're able to use your knowledge, then you're able to do one of the things that the ancients were trying to get us to do, was to use our logic and our intuition. Okay, not one at the expense of the other, because Christianity, that's what they ended up doing, was that they ended up, first of all, they gave us ideas and then forbade us to logically check it out. They forbade us to logically to question them. They even basically outlawed intuition in a way, that they made you question when you had an intuitive thought, is that from God or is that from the devil? They made you mistrust your own inner wisdom and intuition. Family, we have to reclaim that, okay? And we have to reclaim the ability to use our knowledge to inform our wisdom, okay? Hey, family, an addendum with really, when you learn these ideas and you understand them from their ancient philosophical meaning, when we reclaim these ideas, it's not about just changing your belief. It goes way deeper, because belief is really something just on the surface. When you really grasp these ideas and you really take them into yourself, you take them into your being, family, it becomes a whole new way of life. It becomes a new identity. You no longer walk through the world living in fear. I always like to say that Christianity made it to where we were afraid to live and scared to die. But when you really grasp the ancient ideas and concepts free of the dogma, then you learn to really become a soul in human form and learn your power to be a creator on this earth plane, to be able to manifest your desires on this earth plane. And part of learning to manifest is really learning to get over the indoctrination, to learning to get, not just the indoctrination, just learning to really get over the fears and the limitations that we've been taught to live with and live through. Okay, so these ideas are about really gaining and reshaping our identity from I am a born sinner to I am born divine. Okay, and when you really truly take that on, family, you walk different, you talk different, you do everything different, and you do it with a flair. Live life on your terms, unapologetically, without guilt or shame. Live it authentically. Be you. Love you. Okay? That's what happens when you really get these ideas. All right, family, so knowledge is the inner contemplation of wisdom. Wisdom is the inner contemplation of knowledge. So yes, knowledge is absolutely important, but you have to have the ability to sift it through your own inner guidance, your own inner wisdom. If something doesn't feel right, then you need to question whether or not if it doesn't feel right, okay? And I say it, and I said feel. You have to question whether it feels right. And a lot of times that intuitive instinct bypasses the logic. And when something is true for you, it's true for you. And you don't have to confirm that or validate that with anybody outside yourself. When you get confident enough to do that, that's what it ends up coming to, is that you validate you, you know, you validate your own beliefs, your own intuition, you know. But that comes from getting and understanding and a basis of knowledge as well, okay? It has to come from something that is not infused with fear, okay? That is not infused with keeping you ignorant, because that's what Christianity wanted to do, is to keep us ignorant, where we didn't question, you know, that we just accepted stuff on faith. They weaponized that idea. Faith has nothing to do with the idea of you just believing something, you know, unseen and unquestioned, because that's really what their deal was with faith, was that you just didn't question it. You didn't know it, you couldn't see it, you just had to believe it, okay? And family, that was nothing but a tool for control, you know? They weaponized that idea when that's not what it was supposed to mean. So the idea of hell, man, I'm getting ready to go up this hill, family, so if I get to breathing a little hard, that's why. But that's the idea that hell has done for us, is that it ended up keeping us logically trapped in what they needed to control our minds and to control, you know, our intuition and everything else, to just keep you in fear. Fear constricts the portal of knowledge, so to speak. And Christianity has had hundreds and thousands of years of practicing this on billions of people. So understand, excuse me. So understand that they have been practicing how to keep you in Christianity, okay? How to turn off your faculties of reason, you know, how to make you mistrust your own understanding. Lean not on your own understanding, you know, is one of those scriptures. So they had us locked in, but it is the knowledge that, like I'm sharing here with you, that is going to help you to extricate yourself from those fears. So does hell exist? Hell no. Okay? Family, you get to learn forever, not burn forever. You incarnate many times as a soul, okay? Christianity took that away from us. Most systems believed in reincarnation. And again, it's not based on just conjecture. It's just looking at how nature operates, okay? If a flower dies in the winter, a new one comes up in the spring. It might not be the same flower, but it's the same energy. It's the same rhythm of life that you're dealing with, all right? And nature were the ancients' first teachers, okay? We operate just as nature does, but Christianity separated us from that. And even a lot of times, even our science today, it separates us from nature as if we're something different, you know? And that's just not how the ancients operated. So understand this idea, okay? And I hope this is helpful for you. So let me know in the comments, and it will be greatly appreciated. And I'm going to go ahead and continue on my walk. And this is Reginald Martin, out.